What is happening? J Gamer Dude here, and FOMO is certainly alive and well, as it turns out, because I feel like, especially in the gaming space, you can't help but just be like enamored by wanting to jump to the new thing pretty much immediately, rather than waiting like a lot of people who are patient gamers like myself, who can, sit back, wait for the patches to roll out, and eventually be able to enjoy a full experience that has got less bugs, less things wrong with it, and ultimately be able to buy it at a cheaper price point on top of it. Now you might think, by not buying games at full price, that you're not really supporting the industry. So then, if that's the case, then buying anything at all at any price point, would that not serve the industry to some extent as well? Maybe, who knows? But at the end of the day, I was gonna say Life is Strange double exposure devs, but really it's Square, is actually going to be giving away 2-week early access through their Ultimate Edition. And now this is fairly older news, but it is still worth talking about, because up until now, early access has been at most 3 days. So really it's more of, and the way that it's been perceived for the most part is really the release date is 3 days before the release date that they announced. However, anyone who doesn't pay enough money starts playing the game 3 days late. So rather than paying for 3 days early access, you either pay to play on release day with the Ultimate Edition, or play 3 days later. Now, what really kind of strikes in the middle of something like Life is Strange double exposure is that it's 2 weeks of early access for the first 2 episodes. Is it the first 2 episodes? I think it's something along those lines. Hold on, give me a second. Let's say the base game will cost around $50, deluxe will cost $60, and the ultimate sits at $80. Curiously enough, the only difference is that the Ultimate Edition... additional quest for rescuing a cat, being able to play 2 weeks early. So yeah, effectively you are playing for 2 weeks of early access, and that is not good, especially for a story heavy game. A game that I think about, if this sort of model were to be implemented on, would have been The Last of Us. Imagine if The Last of Us, or hell, even The Last of Us Part 2, gave you 2 weeks early access for people who paid $20 more, $20 to $30 more. Let's say 30, because that's what's happening with Life is Strange. You need to kind of imagine the uproar, because people are not scared about sharing spoilers on the internet, especially when something is out to the public. At that point, do expect spoilers to be out there. And hell, it doesn't even need to be on release date. It can be before release, because there are stores that do break street date, or pretty much start giving out copies before the game actually releases. And then you have spoilers abound across the internet, and we've seen these sorts of things happen before with, again, The Last of Us Part 2 as a solid example of this. So with that being said, and there have been a few games actually this year, like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth as another example. But anyway, moving on from that, this is just an incredibly terrible move, because normally, at least up until now, it's been only 3 days access, and secondly has been mostly just multiplayer shooters. And it does make sense to get people on multiplayer online only games or multiplayer specific titles in people's hands sooner, so that the devs can actually figure out, okay, what does the server capacity look like? How is that all going to be managed across the life cycle of this piece of software? But ultimately, if you're looking at a story heavy title that is a single player only game, there's less and less reason to give people early access. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it's just an incredibly scummy and bad thing to do regardless. And the problem with 3 days early access has always been that people have still been buying it. If people did not buy extra bigger Ultimate Editions, then you're not really helping and ultimately making things worse, because now we're looking at 2 weeks. But also, by buying a better edition, you're putting more money into the pockets of the people that are at the top of the pyramid rather than the developers themselves. So if you think you're supporting the developers by buying the game at a higher price point, you might as well just pirate the game if you think that the money's actually going to be going to the developers if you buy a better edition. Because for me, say something like Need for Speed Unbound, I did not buy that game at launch. I bought it when it was only like $10 for the Palace edition. So now I'm able to play this game, get a lot of content out of it, and have only paid $10 for it ultimately. Like, I'm happy with that sort of purchase because I thought it would be incredibly beneficial for me. Bit more of an extreme example, but yeah, unfortunately, this whole early access thing has now become an indictment of our current landscape in selling video games and also marketing them to some extent. This should never have been a thing to begin with, the whole idea of early access, because early access has brought us good things like Hades, but selling early access, selling betas and things like that, demos have always been free. But the problem is they're using the word beta when technically they're providing a demo, because the final product isn't actually all that much different from whatever the beta that they're giving you. And I did that with like massive sarcasm quotes, but you can't see it because obviously I'm not on camera at the moment. But with that being said, it's unfortunate to see how demos and games were treated in the 90s, where they would give you an entire third of the game for free as a demo, and then you could play the rest of the game if you paid $10 or something like that. You know, that's kind of where the concept of shareware came from. Shareware was a great idea back in the day in the 90s, early 2000s. Then they became lesser and turned into demos, where yes, you'd be able to play a small chunk of the game, and if you're interested, you can play, you can buy it and play it then. But since demos kind of died off a little bit in the PS3 to, well, end of PS3, going into the PS4 generation, I'm going to use the PlayStation generations as an example. The PS4 generation, we didn't get much in the way of demos. Yeah, we did still get demos, but they weren't that much. And then, slowly but surely, companies started offering betas, which were technically demos, for higher paid editions that you need to pre-order. So from going from providing an entire third of the game to now just being like, pay me money now and then you'll get the demo, or pay me now more money than the actual price of the product and then you may or may not get a demo or beta or whatever you want to call it. It's just unfortunate to see how the decline has really kind of happened, especially in the sort of space. So let me know what you guys think about all of that in the comments below. Can't say that I'm all that happy about it. I was originally pretty excited for double exposure, but of course I wasn't going to buy it at full price anyways, so I suppose this probably wouldn't affect me that much. But even so, the fact that it's happening is kind of a problem in and of itself. But with all that being said and done, let me know what you guys think about all this in the comments below. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel. I'm aiming for 300 subs by the end of the year. And with all this said and done, I do upload every day, so I'll see you guys tomorrow.